Welcome everyone to Happy Hour, final practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. We get ready for race number 15 of the year in the LifeLock 400. Points leader Tony Stewart has his sights set on another victory, perhaps back-to-back for the smoke. But there are plenty of Roush Fenway cars out there that want to spoil that parade. Little overcast skies here at the speed stage, but nonetheless, we have a very rowdy crowd out here with us today, and that's what we like about coming to the Motor City. The fans out here are second to none. Let's take a look at the menu, see what's coming up on TV this afternoon. And we got you covered on speed all day long. Sprint Cup final practice is now. The Camping World Truck Series Michigan 200 at 1:30 Eastern Time, 24-hour of Le Mans. And then the Meyer 300 is on ESPN2 at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Time now to introduce the pride of Emporia, Virginia, Elliott Sadler, one of the two racing Sadlers.
What'd you call me?
The pride of Emporia, Virginia.
You call me Elliott Sadler?
One of the two. Did I said Hermie? All right.
We got it on
Hermie.
tape. But look, I answered anything. But
Exactly, as long as I got Sadler right, correct?
That part right,
yeah. All right, so an eventful day so far for one of the Roush Fenway cars, the 16 of Greg Biffle. Hermie went for a spin.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it twice in practice. Jimmy Johnson actually spun first lap on the racetrack right here. Greg Biffle gets loose, coming off of turn 2 and slides down the inside of the racetrack. And you don't see that from the Biff very much, but you know what that means, JR? You got to have these cars loose to run fast. And if Greg Biffle can't hold it, it is very, very loose.
And the track has changed quite a bit over the past couple of days. Big rainstorm, and they've got some rubber down on it yesterday. Now a little bit of rain in the area once again. But for more on the Biff, let's go to Randy Pemberton. Randy?
And we have Greg Biffle. What happened there? Hermie said in order to spin it like that, you had to be loose. Is that the case?
I think so. I had the 3 and 4 fuses a little bit too loose there. You know, we're working hard at this thing, trying to get it to go. And we've been yesterday tight. Today real loose, trying to get rear grip in the car. So actually I was kind of shoving the nose and it snapped out way late out off the corner. So I was really surprised about that. Kind of caught me off guard, if you will. But we're learning. We keep working at it.
We talked a long time since the COT, now car of today, has come in, that the sweet spot is just so small with this race car. Has it gotten any bigger as far as you're concerned?
No, it's pretty small. I mean, you have to get it pretty right. I mean, you got to be right down that fine line of, you know, too loose, too tight. And what we're fighting now is a little bit loose in and then a little bit tight in the center, and then it switches coming off. So we'll keep working on it, and we'll get it going.
All right, good luck this weekend. Get your first win.
Thank you.
All right, Bob Dillner.
Well, Randy, Roush Fenway Racing very good here in Michigan, as they always are. But in that practice session, 4th through 7th, Drew Blickensderfer and Matt Kenseth very good as well. 6 quick. How good are those race cars?
You know, I think we were better yesterday. We tried some stuff that practice to see if we could get it better, and we're going to put it all back now the way we had it Friday. Put the California stuff back in it, and since it's a sister track and Matt we ran well there earlier this year, we should be okay.
Of course, won the race at California a little bit earlier this year, but I want to talk to you about a big program that you're going to be kicking off on Sunday night, and it's a program involving Ford and AAA, and I know you're really excited because you're the spokesman.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for high school students. The Ford AAA Student Auto Skills competitions Monday and Tuesday in Dearborn, Michigan. The high school students competed on a statewide level. The state champions are in Dearborn this week, vying for national championships, and the winner gets to job shadow us for Pocono in a few weeks, and it's an exciting event.
It's pretty awesome, and all 50 states are represented in that contest. Now, I want to talk about a couple other things that actually happened during that practice session. Also, incidents with the 48 and the 14 as well. In fact, the 48 had a little loop-de-loop coming off of turn 4 going down pit road. Initially, he thought that the 14 car hit him. In fact, he came on the radio and said, "Hey man, he's been driving forever and he hit me. What happened there?" Tony Stewart came on the radio and basically said, "Hey, I didn't even come near him. So if he thinks I hit him, he's got another thing coming." So that was one incident, but the 48 is okay. They were back out on the racetrack, and so was the 14. Now, very late in the practice session, as we come back to our camera here in the garage area, trouble for Kurt Busch. In fact, take a look at the right side of this race car. He brushed the wall coming off of turn number 4. In fact, Kurt was doing the play-by-play for his team on the radio there. He was basically saying, "Hey, I'm tight, I'm pushing, I'm in the wall." And he brushed the wall a little bit, but he's A-okay, Hermie.
A lot of stuff going on in that practice, and getting back to the Roush Fenway cars, they did not bring it to the table in qualifying yesterday. A lot of talk about Roush Fenway. This is their track, the place they need to win. Matt Kenseth was the best qualifying Roush Fenway car in 16th yesterday, but in first practice this morning, they had 4 out of the top 7, so they all getting it turned around. But these cars are a handful. I know TV doesn't always do it justice. A lot of guys, can't really get the feel they want, but these cars are a handful to drive, even on a racetrack like Michigan when you got plenty of room, JR.
All right, Hermie, thanks a lot.
Hey, what's your brother's name? I need to call you him.
Mark.
Mark. Barry.
All right. We'll get the names right here as we continue on. But let's talk about qualifying yesterday. Brian Vickers got his 3rd pole of the season. And let's take a look, first of all, at Kurt Busch, another good qualifier. Qualified 5th, 187.95 miles per hour. And this would be an awesome place for Penske Motorsports.
Well, he loves this racetrack. He has 2 wins here and loves the high groove, and that will be a factor in the race tomorrow. Guy that can start off at the bottom and get to the top when he needs to.
All right, now once again, we talked about this earlier, Hermie, you and me, we said that David Rudiman just continues to be impressive.
And it seems like he doesn't get a whole lot of respect. And it's like he flies under the radar, runs up front, won the Coca-Cola 600. His bedtime, people started taking notice of David Rudiman. 19th
fastest in that first practice of the day for David Rudiman. He'll have a great starting spot as well, and should come as no surprise that Jimmy Johnson qualified well.
Yeah, I mean, they always on top of their game, and we saw the spin in practice a couple moments ago, but Jimmy Johnson qualified 3rd, and you can bet he'll be up front all day tomorrow.
Yeah, that's pretty much a guarantee. No matter where he starts, he'll make it up front. How about Kyle Busch in the 18, qualified 2nd, just fractions of a second off your pole sitter.
He's got a busy night going to Kentucky tonight, back here for the race tomorrow, and obviously he's got some people that not really pulling for him here in Michigan behind us here, JR.
A lot of people pulling for this guy, Brian Vickers in the Red Bull Toyota. He is the pole sitter in the number 83. That is his 3rd pole this season, and that is tied for the lead this season with Mark Martin, who also has 3, and that's his 8th career pole. Let's take a look at where everybody will line up when the green flag waves tomorrow. And Hermie, as you look at this lineup, you got to know we got 400 miles of wide open racing, but history says it's really good to start up front here.
It really is. Look at A.J. Allmendinger, Casey Kane, good runs for both of those Richard Petty cars. How about John Andretti, qualified 10th, JR?
Clint Boyer on row number 5 with John Andretti. Last week's winner and points leader Tony Stewart starts inside of row number 6.
Good runs for Robbie Gordon inside of row 7, and awesome build from Dawsonville inside of row 8.
Watch out for any of the Roush Fenway Fords, no matter where they start. You see Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle up there. Good qualifying effort for Scott Speed, who came in as a go-or-go-homer.
Also, Joey Logano had a pretty good qualifying run, and he was decent in practice this morning also.
24 of Jeff Gordon is starting in the back of the pack, right in front of, well, pretty much mid-pack. Can't really say back of the pack with Carl Edwards right behind him. It's going to be very interesting to see those guys come up through the field.
A lot of fast cars back in this group. Look at Mark Martin, Sam Hornish. David Gilliland's got a pretty good car out of the RCR stable. Paul Menard, Blaney, and Joe Nemechek.
And back in the field, we got the last couple of drivers who made it in. Only had to send 1 car home, but that was Tommy Baldwin Racing. Max Pappas in the number 13 claimed the final starting position for the LifeLock 400. And as we said, with 15 races in the bag right now, we are getting closer and closer to the chase. And this was also the last place that Dale Earnhardt won in that Hendrick Motorsports car. So he is another one to keep a look at. And everybody very busy in the garage area here, running back and forth. Jeff Burton going to his machine. And now we're getting ready for happy hour. We'll be back in just a moment as we count down to happy hour practice. Welcome back, everyone. Here at Sprint Cup Final Practice is just moments away. Chad Knaus and the number 48 team getting their machine ready for one big, long 90-minute practice session that's coming your way in just a moment. Now, of course, the focus is tomorrow, the LifeLock 400 here at Michigan, and the track president and everybody else here has done a great job to get the facility in great shape. So we want you to come out and join us here. But right now, let's go inside, have a little fun with Rutledge Wood.
What a great place to watch the race. You can see the whole track, start, finish, everything. And if you need a great place to watch the race here at MIS, Roger Curtis, the track president, came up with a great plan. It's called the Speed Zone 400. Tell me about it.
Isn't that awesome? It's right here. These brand new seats in turn 1. Like you said, you can see everything. Best part is, normally $65 ticket, only $45 if you call now. Speed Zone 400, first 400 people.
And that means that before the race, I get to come up, have a little fun with you guys, plus the whole Speed team. We're going to have all sorts of fun goodies to give out. And that's not it. It's going to be fun all day. But, Roger, what is that?
Oh, that's our new beautiful Irish Hills Grill patio down there. You can go down there during the race. You can still get your favorite burger, get a hot dog, all kinds of cool food and drink, and still see the race down there. So, Rutledge, where'd you go?
Wow, isn't this place great? Roger, can I get you anything?
That's the fastest I've seen Rutledge Wood move in years.
Well, I'm sure they're going to fill up, but don't forget Hermie's hot seats in turn 3. I'm going to be hanging up there tomorrow with my wrestlers from TNA, but I don't have a grill in my
Hermie's
section.
hot seat. You better get one.
I've got to go add on a grill and cook some hot dogs.
Now, Hermie, it's been very well publicized. This area is going through some tough times right now. The best thing you can do, though, come out and join us. We'll have a good time. We'll forget our problems for a day and have fun out here at the Speed Stage.
Look at the great fans we got here. It's going to be a great race, great weather. Come on out and join us tomorrow. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you. Come on out.
They can't be wrong. These
They
guys
are
are
not
no
wrong.
dummies.
They're not.
Good race is up here in Michigan. We hope to see you throughout the course of the weekend. Don't forget the Truck Series race today as well, but right now it's time for Happy Hour.
Overcast skies here at the Michigan International Speedway. It's time for final practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series teams as they roll off in preparation for tomorrow's LifeLock 400 2-mile Michigan International Speedway. And hi, everybody. Glad you're with us. Steve Burns, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond. Now, we just had a 1-hour practice. Let's take a look at some incidents that happened in that session. A couple of the bigger names involved in the sport had some problems. Larry Mack, Tony Stewart, and Jimmy Johnson, do they get together?
It looked like Jimmy Johnson was a little loose. Tony got into it, and I will say that was the first lap on the track during that first practice session. They really almost were not even up to speed.
Greg Biffle, a 2-time winner here at MIS, also off turn 2, goes around. Jeff Hammond, fortunately, doesn't look like too much damage to that 16 car.
No, I think all he had to do is come back in, get him 4 good years, and he's ready to get ready for the second practice.
Well, Larry Mack, Denny Hamlin was the fastest driver in that practice. So as a crew chief, how do we approach, how do we attack this practice?
Well, it's going to be tricky. Yeah, I watched Denny Hamlin that entire first practice. Not only was he the fastest, but he was the fastest on the long run. But I think these crew chiefs have to be so careful with these practice sessions because it's cool, it's overcast. In fact, Denny Hamlin's fastest lap in that practice would have been quick enough to have qualified 5th yesterday in qualifying. The track has a ton of grip. I think what you're going to have to do is take your notes from last year, your notes from yesterday, your notes from today, and push them together because it's supposed to be a lot warmer, a lot hotter, and a lot less grip on this racetrack tomorrow.
Jeff, we talked yesterday about Roush Fenway Racing. Jack Roush has a big enterprise in Livonia, Michigan nearby. 11 Cup wins for Roush Fenway. They did not qualify well. The best, Matt Kenseth, is 16th. However, in practice, 4 of them in the top 10.
Well, what I'm thinking right now, Steve, is the fact these guys basically said, you know what, we're going to buck the trend. We always talk about qualifying being important here at Michigan. Guys who've won recently have come out of the top 10. But they said yesterday, let's work on our race setup. A lot like what Larry's talking about. I believe this group said, look at the weather. Let's get prepared for the big picture, and that is we want to score points and get wins here. We need to really work on our race setup. Let's get as many runs in as we possibly can, get our cars balanced where they can be up the front. And right now, as we take a look at Greg Biffle back on the racetrack once again after getting these 4 good years after that spin earlier, it looks like the Roush Fenway group, they're back on top looking like they're flexing their muscle. And you've got to believe if you talk to anybody in the garage area that you're going to have to beat one of those cars come tomorrow.
I think there's no question. It's hard to believe that Roush Fenway Racing, since Matt Kenseth in the 17 group won those first 2 races of the year, they have absolutely been shut out since Auto Club Speedway. Steve, we do need to add, we had one other incident in that first practice. It was actually right after we went back to green after the Jimmy Johnson action coming off turn 4. Dave Blaney in the 66 and Max Pappas in the 13 car got together. They went in the garage area. They never did come back out the remaining part of that practice.
There's our Daytona 500 winner, Matt Kenseth.
He was 6th fastest in that first practice.
And he was the highest qualifying Roush Fenway car at 16th. You know, Steve, when we go to racetracks like here where we've run so many races, as you mentioned, this is the 80th race here. In 62 of the 79 races here has been won from a top 10 start. I think what we have to start doing is take a look back at the most current races because I think so many of these numbers came from back in the day when the fast cars that were fast on qualifying day were the fast cars on race day, because when you look, 6 of the past 9 winners here have started outside the top 10. So I think that number those numbers of top 10 starts going to victory lane came from back in the day, in the early years.
Well, as Brian Vickers and Matt Kenseth battle, I want to ask you guys this. Speaking of numbers, why have we had 14 different winners in the last 14 June races?
Because it's a real tricky racetrack for one thing, Steve. And I think a lot of guys come in here, and if you nail the setup here, this racetrack is a place, Larry mentioned it yesterday, it's a momentum racetrack. And if you can carry just a little more corner speed than your fellow competitor, and you hit the right setup, you can drive off and basically cover the field. And again, it's so close. I mean, one turn, quarter turn, a lot of times on a wedge bowl can make that much different. You got a car. Now, he talked about Denny Hamlin, how good he is here today. I'd be real nervous if I had a fast race car here today, because tomorrow, being so different than what it's going to be, it'll get you in trouble. I've had great race cars in a morning practice section here, and all of a sudden the driver says, "What did you do? I mean, how could you mess a car up like you did?" I said, "I didn't. I put 4 tires on it and filled it full of fuel." Racetrack changes. So I think guys come in here and they think they got the right setup, and they don't work on it hard enough, or they get a little bit complacent, and somebody continues to work on it. When they hit it, man, see you later. It's off to the races.
Let's go to Matt Yoakum in the garage.
And one driver who's been chasing the weather all weekend is Carl Edwards in the 99 team. Discussing weather, 10 degrees average cooler today than what it normally is on June 13th. What are you seeing in the first session that really correlates to that?
Well, that must be because all those Ford Fusion hybrids out there helping the global warming, but I don't know. Hadn't really thought about that. We're just trying to get this car to handle. The weather is going to be a factor, though. I guess, you know, it's going to be probably sunny, warmer tomorrow. This track will get nice and slick, and it could help us with what we're dealing with right now. We're having a little bit of trouble with some stuff, making this car handle like I want it all the way around the racetrack.
All right, PK, Pierre Coutel, giving him the high sign. Time to get into this 99 machine. They have yet to go out in this final practice. In the earlier session, he was 4th fastest. 2-time winner here at MIS. Marty Snyder?
Well, Matt, let's see. Carl Edwards has mentioned it. Our own weatherman Larry Mack has mentioned it. And all these crew chiefs I've talked to today have all mentioned the weather. As we've talked about, much cooler today. It'll be hot and sunny tomorrow. The track will be completely different, but also rain in the area. So NASCAR moved up practice just by 5 minutes because the rain is supposed to hit around 1:30 this afternoon. Just talked to Denny Hamlin and his team. Denny going out right now. He told me, can't really take too much stock in what we did in that first session. Our car loose and tight, so being fast right now, Jeff Hammond, as you mentioned, may not count for much. Denny waited a long time for our left rear shock to be built. Got that shock built and heading out on the track right now.
And Marty, I mean, he's at least being honest with you. He knows what he's up against. I mean, it's great to have a fast race car, guys. Don't get me wrong, but just don't let it fool you thinking you got the best race car here this week.
If I was Mike Ford and my 11 car was fast again, I'd be a very nervous man, because that seems like that's been the kiss of death for this 11 car. Go back to Pocono last week. They were the fastest. They were good on the long runs. They dropped the green flag, and they had a fuel pump problem.
Well, we've talked about the weather a lot. Temperature right now, just 66 degrees. Track temp is 76. A lot of humidity in the air.
That's the big number right now, 76 degrees track temperature. Let that thing heat up 10 degrees, and you will have a totally different race car.
The driver's voice goes up an octave.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Practice on Speed is brought to you by Gander Mountain. We live outdoors. Shop the stores, the catalog, or at gandermountain.com, where standard shipping is free all day, every day.
My kind of motto right there. I like to live outdoors.
This is probably the man that's the most nervous about the weather, Kyle Busch in this 18 car, because he's leading the Nationwide Series points. He's scheduled to race there at Kentucky, trying to get down there for qualifying, actually, for the Nationwide Series race. But he's also racing in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race here later on this afternoon. So if we have a rain delay on it, I think what will happen, someone else would climb in that truck, because he's not running all the truck races, and he would move on down to Kentucky, especially since he's the points leader.
That's the way I'd play it.
You know what? I loved possibly putting my teammate Denny Hamlin in that truck. How about that? Can't put Joey Logano in it. Joey Logano's going to Kentucky too.
That wouldn't be a bad move right there.
Not a bad pinch hitter.
Not a bad pinch hitter at all. Coming to the plate.
Steve, I've got more numbers that support what we were talking about when you look at starting in the top 10 here and winning the race, mainly back in the day. In fact, the first 44 races here at Michigan International Speedway were won from the top 10 starting spot.
Jeff Gordon in that 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. In case you weren't with us yesterday, lost a motor. He'll have to start from the rear of the field.
He didn't qualify very good. He qualified 27th, and again, when he went out to qualify, it was for pit selection only. But when I look at the earlier practice session, he was 22nd quickest. He ran a total of 25 laps. This is what happened yesterday, and this was fairly early in the practice session. He only ran about 5 or 6 laps. They had to change the engine in the 24 car, and per the NASCAR rule book, he goes to the rear of the field.
You know, they've had the points lead for quite a while this year, but the last 3 weeks, they've been off just a tick. They have struggled with the handle on that 24 car.
Go back to Pocono, they didn't have a great performance, but they had a great finish by virtue of Steve Leclerc in the fuel mileage strategy.
And before we move on to Joey Logano, just looking at today's practice, Jeff is 32nd. He's run 11 laps, so they still got some work to do on that car.
See, Joey Logano comes in here 25th in the points. In fact, his last 7 races, he's finished on the lead lap in all of those races. So you can continue to see seat time paying dividends for this young 19-year-old.
And to take that a step further, Larry, is take a look at miles per hour and where he is on the racetrack. Greg Zipadelli, his crew chief, told me at Dover that I was asking him about confidence. And he said Joey's confidence is really apparent in that he's much more secure about the information he's giving back and knowing what he wants.
Well, they're building their notebook. I think for so many races in the beginning, they were having to roll into racetracks with notes from Tony Stewart. Now they're starting to be able to roll into racetracks with notes from Joey Logano.
Exactly, and again, it all comes with experience and time. And some guys, you know, are a little bit more, you know, you've got a wider margin for error. That's the key thing right now, is that you have an opportunity. And you were trying to circle us and show us what?
Miles per hour in race trim over 200 miles per hour off into
going off turn one with 18 degrees of banking on his front straightaway, going off into turn one there, into that 18 degrees of banking. It's a lot easier to carry that speed, so I'm not surprised to see the speeds are still up there.
And just to finish the Joey Logano story, Greg said, you know, it wasn't that Joey lost confidence in his driving ability, his racing ability. He wasn't sure about the information he was giving them.
Well, you got to understand something. You're 19 years old. You've got a bunch of, he's a boy. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but he's a boy. And you're working with a bunch of men. And you get out of a race car and say, I want this done, this done, this done. You're the leader of the team, basically. You're that onboard computer. And that's a lot of pressure, because if you give them the wrong information and they know it's wrong, they look at you like you got 2 heads, and you start second guessing yourself. So he's in a really tough situation. He's having to grow up and mature, you know, overnight.
Marty, what's going on with Martin Truex Jr.?
Well, it's amazing, guys, how close all these teams are cutting and trying to get the car as low as they can. Truex was one of those guys yesterday. What we saw, 2 or 3 cars that bottomed out, hit the wall in their first lap. That was the case for Truex this morning. First lap on the racetrack in that first session, bottomed out, scraped the wall a little bit, and they've been struggling with the handling a little bit of this car as he starts to come into pit road here. Tight, he says, and loose off. They did not fix the problem from the first session. He wants to run the top, just can't get up there because the car is way too loose going in, tight coming off the corner.
And of course, the bottoming out yesterday, the bottoming out today, as we see Kevin Harvick, the 29 car, they really got in a great qualifying run yesterday. I think it almost surprised them all. Ended up qualifying 12th based on how he was in practice. Is simply working out how much you're letting the car travel in the front. We know everybody's got super soft springs. They're sitting them down on those springs, but those shock packers and the shocks, how much height of packer you want in there, that's something they had to work out yesterday for qualifying, and they have to work out today for race trim. Because you don't travel as much when you take tape off the nose of these cars like you have to race them.
Kevin Harvick ran 19 laps in the first practice. Fastest lap good enough for 24th. Here's a look at your top 10 here in final practice at Michigan International. See damage to the left rear quarter panel there of Max Pappas's Geico Toyota. Larry, you mentioned contact in the first practice between Dave Blaney and the 66 Pappas there in the 13.
And it was early in that practice. Again, we had the Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car situation. We went back to green flag open practice, And about that time, the 13 and the 66 got together in turn 4 as well. Max just barely got in this show, qualified 43rd. We do need to mention that we had 44 cars here. The only car that did not qualify was the 36 car, Tommy Baldwin's entry with Mike Skinner driving. The 66 has still not been out in this practice session. He only got, Dave Blaney got 2 laps in that first practice before that incident happened between he and Max Pappas.
Quickest in this practice, the Hendrick Motorsports teammates, Mark Martin in the 5 and Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 88. Then it's your pole sitter, Brian Vickers in the 83. Jeff, I'm curious, we've talked so much about the weather. It rained here a lot Thursday. Yesterday was beautiful, temperatures in the mid-70s. Overcast again today with a threat of more rain. Tomorrow's supposed to be warmer, so the weather's all over the place as we watch Jimmy Johnson down the backstretch. My question is, how confusing is that in your overall game plan for Sunday? What can you accomplish today?
You can make some more notes. I mean, that's the main thing. You can try different things. I mean, the engineers and the crews that work on these cars today, they can take an overcast day and they understand how to factor in what the different elements are. Now, did they hit it exactly right every time? No. But still, it's like a test session. If it's overcast here, you may go to another track later on this year and some of the same similarities will be there. So you need to get that information. We keep talking about notebooks. I mean, this is what it's all about. You don't have testing anymore. So you need to take full advantage of when you're at the track of making laps and trying different things. I mean, at one time, when you could go test somewhere, you know, you get your car real close, it wouldn't be no big deal to see a guy show up and run 5 or 10 minutes of the practice. Oh, it's good. I know it's good because we've already tested it. And they'd be sitting in the garage here waiting on, you know, the next practice session or the race. You can't do that anymore. You've got to get on the racetrack, try shock packages, try some aero stuff, try a different line around the racetrack, maybe even do something different to the engine. You do those things because now is your test session. If the car's good, try something different.
You know, watching Jimmy Johnson here in this 48 car right now, he's 10th quickest as far as a fast lap. But what I like is what I'm seeing. He's run a total of 12 laps. Is his lap times this deep into this session looks awfully good. He's one of the few cars that can still run in the 39-second bracket. You can see, though, having to play with that throttle off the corner. This is a brand new race car they brought here. And when you think about all of Jimmy Johnson's wins and the runs he's had, this has not been one of his better racetracks. 14 starts here, 2 top 5 finishes, 6 top 10s. It's one of only 6 tracks that he's not been to victory lane.
But the one thing about Jimmy Johnson, as well as Chad Canals, when they've got a bad racetrack, they seem like they work harder than anybody I know in the garage area. I'm not trying to knock anybody, but they seem like they put an extra effort in trying to figure out whatever they need to get to victory lane. And Jimmy is so disciplined right now that he overcomes it. Remember how he used to be on restrictor plate races at one time? He used to always be, watch it 48, sooner or later he's going to create a wreck or do something. And he worked and worked and worked. Now he's one of the better restrictor plate racers there is.
You know what's unique, though? We talked about one of only 6 tracks he's not won at. I'm going to name some of them. Michigan, Bristol, Sonoma, Watkins Glen. What do those tracks have in common? Not part of the chase.
Aha.
Now you're thinking outside the box, young man.
Hey, Ryan Newman's slowing down, but it's about the only time we've seen him slow over the last 6 weeks. 6 straight finishes of 8th or better have vaulted him from 10th in the points to 4th at Stewart-Haas Racing.
Incredible run right there by this entire organization. I mean, it's just, it's been fun to watch them come out of the box and continue to do what they're doing. And Matt, you know a little bit about this group right here, don't you?
Well, I also know a little bit about the weather around here, too. And when you look at the old long-time saying about Michigan, if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes, it'll be different. That's exactly what Ryan Newman was stressing to his crew chief, Tony Gibson, because this is one of the most temperature-sensitive racetracks that we go to on the circuit. And he was telling Tony Gibson that the car was very free, especially when he got on throttle. But he also said, look, the track has lost so much grip from yesterday. Our car, very good. I'm pleased in the direction we're headed. So don't think that we're not as good as we are. They made a shock and track bar adjustment on the last time in. Newman, though, still says the car is free, but they're pretty pleased where they stand with their package on this 39.
All right, I'm going to go back to my 48 car again. We continue to do research. We've named 4 of the tracks he's not won at. The other one of the other ones, Chicago, not in the chase. The 6th one, Homestead Miami Speedway. When you think about the last 3 years, he didn't go there thinking about winning the race. He went there
He's
thinking about winning the
just
championship.
protecting his lead. That's all he cared about.
You know what, Larry? You're starting to scare me.
I'm starting to scare myself.
Because now you're starting to sound an awful lot like Chad Canals right now. I mean, that's kind of like that's scary right there, because that sounds like vintage Chad. Let's focus on the ones where the big picture really is.
That's what wins the championship.
That's right.
Tony Stewart right now, you see him in the number 14 Chevrolet. Office Depot sponsorship. 25th overall for Stewart. Let's go back to the garage and Marty.
Steve Dale Earnhardt Jr. second, as you mentioned a moment ago. He came in just moments ago and said that's the most comfortable I've been. I need to get better through the center and the corner. I'm very happy with the entry and the exit, though. But some very interesting conversation between he and Lance McGrew Jr. in the car, saying, I'm having a tough time describing exactly what's going on with the car. When I'm on the top part of the racetrack, I'm hitting the right front real hard, using less brakes around the top. But when I'm on the bottom, I feel like I'm losing speed in the center of the corner. So they're trying to figure out that middle part of the corner. And another interesting thing he said, when I switch lanes, it really hits the left front hard. There's a difference in the lanes here. He said he feels that when he hits the left front hard, makes him almost spin out. So trying to solve that middle part of the corner, but Junior and Lance getting a little bit closer each time out.
It's really good to watch these guys. They're evolving and starting to pick up each other's traits and what their needs and what their communication lines need to be. And what he's talking about, it's great to hear him giving that kind of feedback back to Lance McGrew about what the car's doing, because I know Lance is smart enough that if he doesn't have the right answer, he knows how to go talk to an engineer and come up with the right solution to make that car more comfortable. But the way this track is, it does have a little bit of transition, and you can see the grooves around here. There are places where all of a sudden it's got some rough spots, and you can hit that left side. We've already seen cars bottom out on a splitter before and hit the wall because of it. So racetrack's real rough. It may look smooth, but it's not.
Steve, it's like we said yesterday, this is really the first weekend that Lance McGrew and Dale Earnhardt Jr., they've had the whole weekend to work together. We had rain last week at Pocono on Saturday.
For that team, it's all about progress. They're making some in practice. They're second to Mark Martin. Stay with us here on Speed for the Michigan International Speedway. Thursday night, wrecked is all new. O'Hare must tow a bridge across an icy pond, and disaster looms when the ice beneath begins to break. Don't miss an all-new episode of Wreck, Life in the Crash Lane, Thursday night, 10 Eastern, exclusively on Speed. You see Mark Martin slowing down, a 4-time winner here at Michigan International. Take a look at the Hendrick cars here in practice.
Tell you what, you never count Jeff Gordon out, but they have struggled here this weekend across the board again, and just added to it with the engine failure yesterday in practice. Mark Martin comes in here 13th in the points, only 1 point behind Denny Hamlin.
Take a look at Kurt Busch there in the 2 car. Now, just a moment ago, I was watching he and the 42, Juan Pablo Montoya, and they had a pretty good battle going on. Kurt was running the high line, and believe it or not, the 42, he was down on the bottom, right on the white line, around 3 and 4, and they were going at it pretty hot and heavy right there for a practice session, trying to test each other out. There's Juan Pablo.
Let's watch him go through 1 and 2. We know that this racetrack has a multitude of grooves. You can run at the bottom, you can run in the middle, you can run at the top. I was watching him in the first practice, and he was definitely searching around that time through 1 and 2. He ran about the middle of the racetrack.
Juan Pablo starting 7th tomorrow.
Both he and his teammate Martin Truex Jr. have been really good since they've unloaded here at MIS.
They were both fast in that practice yesterday before qualifying.
Remember, this place goes long green on a lot of times.
That's good information, and they're dead on it. I mean, this place can have a long green flag run, and you can make green flag stops, and getting into a rhythm and keeping your tires underneath the car. Tire management is very important here.
Jeff, Larry, we hear a lot of guys talk about the balance of the race car, and let's follow up on that. Brian Patty said we have a long green flag race, a green flag run rather. It burns off the fuel, and it changes the balance in that race car.
Well, when you burn off the fuel, that's putting more nose weight into the car, taking weight off the rear of the car, and that's normally, along with the loss of grip in the front tires, that's what makes the car start not turning or pushing the nose. It seems like that this car here, being a little bit of that fickle car we talk about, that sometimes this car will get looser as the racetrack gets more rubber. I think what you almost have to have here, whether old car, new car, is a car that's a little free at the beginning, not loose, but a little bit free, knowing that as you burn that fuel load off, it's going to get tighter and start pushing the nose more and more.
Clint Boyer will start in 8th tomorrow in the LifeLock 400. Having a good practice. His quickest lap good enough for 5th. He's with Marty.
Yeah, and he only made one run out there in that first session. He's been pacing around here for like 15 minutes. Are you done already?
I was trying to figure that out, but you know, this track's hard on motors anyway. The track conditions are more than likely going to be quite a bit different. I feel like we've hit on some things that we need to, you know, for the race. Car's close enough, so you know, we need to park the Cheerios, Hamburger Helper Chevrolet. It's just out there burning miles up on the motor.
Tell me about all the work that has gone into getting these all of the RCR cars better. I know the guys put a ton of work into this specific car.
Well, you know, our crew chiefs, engineers, everybody at RCR, the engine shop, everybody's picked their program up. You know, we hit, about a couple months ago, we hit these mile-and-a-half racetracks, and we just really struggled. We were racing each other for 30th, so this is a huge step in the right direction. You know, we really, all of us drivers really appreciate everybody's hard work, and we've been working hard. You get out of it what you put into it, and RCR has been putting a lot into this program right now.
Tell you what, Harvick with a good qualifying run yesterday. Clint with a smile today. Saw Jeff Burton earlier with a smile. These guys much better here at Michigan.
That's interesting on the engine. I looked at the 3 different practices. The one yesterday, the 2 today. The 33 team Clint Boyer, they've run about 55 laps. We saw a while ago at the miles per hour, at the RPM, and even though this is only a 400-mile race, it makes the engine guy awfully nervous. Just listen to the RPM here. It's that hanging RPM, and that just hammers the valves. It hammers the valve springs. It hammers everything up in the cylinder heads, and that's the reason the engine guys, and it's the cycles you get on the engines here as well.
3 engine-related DNFs in both Michigan races last year.
But you don't have to have an engine failure, but the other part of it, you can also wear an engine out. And after this practice session, they're going to change valve springs, but they're worried about, you know, you go putting cycles on it, too many RPMs, you actually lose. An engine loses a little bit of horsepower, loses a little bit of torque the longer you run it. So you want to keep it as fresh as possible. So at the end of 400 miles, you can outrun that guy when it counts.
And that's why Mr. Boyer's going to go finish his Coke Zero.
Makes sense to me.
After 9 laps in the final practice, he's happy.
We're not done. Stay with us here on Speed. We'll be back to Michigan. There's your pole sitter for tomorrow's race, Brian Vickers. 3 straight finishes here at Michigan of 8th or better. Guys, he's led laps in all 3 of those races.
And that was actually his 2nd consecutive pole here. He sat on the pole in August. A big week for Brian. Signed a contract extension with Red Bull Racing. Sat on the pole yesterday. But, you know, Brian and this 83 team, this is their 3rd year. And you go back to last year and this year, they keep flirting with winning a race. They keep flirting with making the chase. They finished 21st at Pocono last week with 12 races to go. They're going to have to get on the stick. They're 17th in the points. They're 143 points out of the chase. It's like they just can't completely seal the deal, it seems like, to get to victory lane. I think they're close. They just hadn't done it yet.
They've been fast, but, Jeff, they've got to close that deal.
They do, but they've had opportunities this year. I mean, Brian has put them in position, and you hate to ever kind of like point fingers at people, but the group as a whole, they haven't been able to put that period on it. You know, they made some mistakes when it really counted during crunch time that have taken things away from him, you know, as far as giving him that final opportunity, I think, to get to victory lane. I think there's a couple races that he could have won already this year.
Marty Snyder, what's going on with Mark Martin's team?
Well, he is done for practice, Steve, and Mark very happy with his race car. Said the entry is about perfect. Exit, he could work on a little bit, but small changes is what they're looking for. And you remember how we were talking earlier, it may not be a good thing to be fast in these practice sessions today because the weather's going to be so different tomorrow. I asked Alan Gustafson about that as crew chief. Said, does that worry you that you're fast today? He said, you know what? With Mark Martin, no. He said he knows what he's looking for. And the weather, all that stuff doesn't really affect Mark. He knows the feel he's looking for in the car, the balance he's looking for. When he's happy, I know we'll be good no matter what the weather's going to be.
Interesting concept.
Well, I think Mark Martin has enough starts here. He knows what to expect almost in any weather conditions, it seems like.
Well, tomorrow will prove out, Larry, as we take a look here at the 6-car David Reagan, but never want to say that somebody is smarter than I am, but I just know how this racetrack will sometimes throw you a curve, and he doesn't really care if it's Mark Martin, Dale Earnhardt Jr., or Jimmy Johnson. When the weather changes up here, if your car's not tunable, you're going to have a long afternoon.
Good pickup for David Reagan, Jeff. He qualified 23rd. I mentioned 4 of the Roush Fenway cars were in the top 10 in the first practice. He's the 5th, and he now is in the top 10.
Steve, I think you told me there's a little bit of a change going on with this race car. You were telling me this morning.
Chris Andrews, who's in the engineering department or R&D department at Roush Fenway, is going to help out on that 6 car. And you know, Jeff, we talked about it yesterday with David Reagan. They're looking for a spark.
Yeah, and again, sometimes it happens that way. But they came off a really strong year, 2008. Looked like that they were going to be one of the guys that would be in the victory lane in a short, period of time. But again, Roush Fenway as a whole has struggled, and unfortunately, the 6 car seemed like it struggled more than anybody else in that organization. So I'm sure they're looking to try to turn some things around, get that UPS 4 back up front.
Only 2 top 15 finishes this year at the restrictor plate track, Steve.
Mark Martin is in the garage. We'll have more practice coming up. Speed into Father's Day at Infineon Raceway in Sonoma for the Toyota Save Mart 350. Visit the speed stage all weekend and sign up to win the ultimate Father's Day race package. You could win the chance to watch the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race from the number 20 Home Depot pit box and much more. Go to speedtv.com, keyword promo. Carl Edwards, 6th quickest in his Aflac Ford Fusion for Roush Fenway.
I think this is going to be a cat that's going to make a little noise tomorrow. I know he's got his work cut out for him, considering where he actually qualified. He qualified back in the 29th position, but he's been pretty sporty these 2 practice sessions. And we know, I think as we spoke earlier, this is one of the teams that elected to work a lot on race setup yesterday when it was a little hotter and a little sunnier.
And again, I think that was a good move. And guys, if you didn't notice, looked to me like Carl's got his summer haircut on. He won't have time to be washing and drying his hair, so he's got it cut real close this week.
High and tight.
High and tight.
He'll be making that trip down to Kentucky. Had a great weekend last weekend at Nashville and Pocono. Finished 2nd both races.
There's a car that we've been watching so far in practice all weekend long. He's been fast in all the previous practice sessions and qualified pretty well. Bobby Gordon.
Yeah, qualified 13th, and you're right.
Second spark plug wire, something happened.
Yeah, he just went out on the racetrack, guys, so he must have had an issue.
Yeah, but if
Ford is shut off.
He's maybe thinking they've got a spark plug wire off.
Matt has an update on Kurt Busch.
Well, talking about possible electrical issues, that's exactly what the 2 of Kurt Busch is experiencing. They believe they've got a short somewhere in their wiring harness. They'll swap that out at the end of this final practice. What happens is the starter engages and stays engaged. So they've had to unhook that every time out. The Miller Lite crew guys have to push start Kurt Busch, but you can hear in his voice each week just the turnaround that they've experienced. 5th in the championship standings. A year ago they were 21st, and during this practice session, he says the car is just a tick on the free side. They made a shock change. That's what they're going to see if it's approved the field for Kurt. But they're pretty decent. Although the time on the stopwatch says they're 21st, they feel like they've got a lot better car than what it's showing on the scoreboard.
And yeah, they've had a great race car all year long. Now, I know the last 3 races, they've looked a little dim. He's had 2 finishes outside the top 30. Last week at Pocono, something that never goes wrong in today's world. They had a water pump failure. They ended up finishing 37th, and then you go back to the Coca-Cola 600 at Lowe's. They had the vibration. They had to pit under green, and ended up then the weather moved in.
Kurt Busch headed to the garage area. Mark Martin and Dale Earnhardt Jr. still have the 2 quickest laps in this practice.
Yeah, Larry, you wonder maybe, they're running that new engine, maybe something like that. With the parts that are now going to that new engine, maybe that's where they had the issue from as far as the water pump is concerned. Because like you're saying, that's one of the components nowadays is just about what we consider, in our terms, bulletproof.
When you look at the last month, week in and week out, this has maybe been one of the most solid Richard Childress teams here. Casey Mears in the 07 car, and in this practice session, he's 13th quickest. You can see the little scrape on his car. That was right off the bat in yesterday's practice before qualifying.
This racetrack's been kind of tricky. If you don't believe me, we've been following the 88 and a couple other cars, and it's not surprising watching the 07 or anybody else here. But take a look at the 88 here, Dale Jr. All of a sudden, this car here, he gets down underneath Max Pappas. I think right there, you'll see the car get just a little bit loose as he starts up in front of 13, but I believe that came just from taking the air off the spoiler right there, guys.
Maybe he'll adjust that packer in that left front a little bit, Tom, because of that left front spring change. Still outside.
And I think what's deceiving about that shot, that was happening probably off the corner, 175 maybe, close to 180.
Probably 175.
Awesome Bill Elliott, 24th in this practice. 7-time winner here at the Michigan International Speedway. We'll be right back here on Speed. Scene Daily at SpeedTV.com have teamed up to form the most powerful online news in NASCAR. Visit SpeedTV.com for in-depth analysis, breaking news, and more. The news for Jamie McMurray right now, 23rd fastest, one of the Roush Fenway cars. And McMurray starts 31st in tomorrow's LifeLock 400.
You know, you go back a year ago, of course, we got into fuel mileage and fuel strategy late in the race. Jamie McMurray, in fact, he passed Dale Earnhardt Jr. one time late in that race. Dale Earnhardt Jr. did not even realize that McMurray was on the lead lap, and that was a pass for the lead. But Jamie ended up having to pit with about 3 or 4 laps to go for fuel.
Well, we just heard moments ago Robbie Gordon down pit road saying something happened, something's wrong. He's back on the racetrack. Marty has that story.
Yeah, and I'll let the guys up there with you, Steve, who are smarter than you and I with engines and all that. The window for the float and the carburetor backed out on Robbie Gordon. So he said when he hit second gear, he could tell something was wrong right away. They've already fixed it and went back out. The interesting thing is they almost didn't go out that last time. Robbie was very happy with the chassis of the car, and then they decided last second, let's make one more run. Good thing they did. They would have found that on lap 1 instead of finding it today.
Well, both ends of the carburetor, they have a bowl on them. And that's where the fuel, that the jets feed the carburetor. And there's a level that fuel level has to be set in those bowls. And how you set it is a screw on top of the carburetor front and rear. But how you know where it's at, you take a screw out of the side of the bowl and you can actually see the fuel in there. Sounds like to me that it actually backed out, was just spilling fuel out of the carburetor.
Yeah, he's lucky that he was able to feel it, but even probably more luckier that it didn't create a fire under the hood. That raw fuel getting out there on those hot headers, that could have started an engine fire in the engine compartment, and that would have been a very disastrous situation. So good break right there for the 17. And again, Robbie's been real strong all weekend long. And you know, in recent weeks, it seems like his 7 car is really starting to get comfortable, I think, with the new Camry, the new engine package, and the people that are working on it, because week in and week out, they've run better. They've been running a lot more competitive.
You said earlier, too, Jeff, he's looking forward to Sonoma.
Oh, he is. He claims he's got himself a rocket ship for the road course races, and anybody that knows anything about Robbie Gordon knows that he is probably one of the top road racers in the NASCAR garage today. And if he can get him a little hot rod to get the job done out there, he'll be fun to watch. And that's part of what we were talking about yesterday. Guys like Robbie Gordon, Marcus Ambrose, you know, we know that Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon, they're going to be good, but these other guys, they're going to give them a feel.
Yeah, 2 of his 3 career wins came on the road courses. The other one was, of course, at Loudon, New Hampshire back in the fall of 2001.
Mention Greg Biffle spun late in the first practice in the 16 car. He is back on the racetrack, and guys, he is having a very productive practice. He's 4th quickest.
Ran quite a few laps too, got 29 laps on this practice session, so it looks like Greg is definitely trying to get this thing set up for the long run.
Well, we talked about Roush Fenway across the board. I mean, Jack Roush just put so much pride, Jeff Hammond knows this, in winning here, because obviously this is headquarters for Ford, but it's also the home for Jack Roush. Roush Fenway Racing, just in Cup alone, they have 11 wins here.
How many employees does he have at Roush Industries in Livonia?
When he want to start to guess right now, because that
over
place
1,000, isn't it?
I believe that's correct. I mean, they're involved in so many other different things besides racing. It's not just automotive driven, but a lot of it is, and Jack and his partners and everybody involved in that corporation do a great job.
And he'll be with us on trackside at Infineon Raceway
next week.
Stay with us here at Michigan International. Closing moments, closing laps of practice coming up. Marcus Ambrose does not have good memories of this racetrack. From last August, he blew up on lap 17. He's had an impressive season nonetheless.
Qualified 33rd, but he's definitely carrying the Michael Waltrip Racing banner in this practice session. He's 13th. He's run a total of 23 laps. His teammates, David Rudiman and Michael Waltrip, 36th and 37th, respectively.
Jeff mentioned it a moment ago. If you play fantasy racing, load up on Marcus Ambrose next week.
That's the ticket. Gonna be good. Thought he's gonna win that thing out there at that road course last year.
And Jeff mentioned this also earlier in the week. It's going to be a different story. Last year, Ambrose was driving the 21 car for the Wood Brothers, went back to Milwaukee, ran the nationwide race, then back to Infineon. Jeff, this time he'll have full attention on that 47 car.
Unbelievable right there. I mean, as far as what he did last year, crisscrossing the country and have as good a run as he did. But he definitely will be one of the guys I'm going to be waiting to see next weekend. Here's another guy that's going to be a factor. I can promise you that. Tony Stewart. They were up at Virginia International last week doing a little bit of road course practice, trying to get ready for the upcoming race at Infineon.
He's run a bunch of laps in this practice, Jeff. He's run 38 laps. The only cars I see that maybe he's run more, Brian Vickers has run 39 and Joey Logano has run 40.
Matt, what's going on with that 14 team?
The championship point leader, Stewart, very pleased with the feel that he's getting in the 14 car. Very secure. And really, when you look at Stewart, one trend that is always there, he's a bottom dweller. Typically likes to run the bottom, but he has run a lot up top in his final practice. Now, they've shifted the balance from the car being a tick on the tight side to being loose, and they're trying to shift it back a little more toward the tight side. They made a sprint change on that last stop, but you can really tell how a team is running, not by the stopwatch, but really just by the mood and the number of changes they're making. When Stewart was in last time, he started to back out. Brian Taylor, BT, the interior crew member who takes care of inside the race car, he had a hold of the steering wheel, and you can tell Stewart was in a great mood because he wouldn't let go of BT's hand all the way out the garage. And when he tried to take off, he finally let go. So you can tell this team, good spirits here in the championship leaders garage.
That group right now, from top to bottom, they've got more bounce in their step than anybody in the garage area, and rightly so.
Prankster. Driver's a prankster.
When he's playing pranks, you know he's happy.
You know what the happy Tony is? That's a dangerous Tony.
Fast Tony.
You got that right.
We'll be back to Michigan International Speedway right after this here on Speed. Sunday on Speed, NASCAR race day marches into Michigan. Before the action heats up on the track, be there's Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman discuss the phenomenal first season of Stewart Haas Racing. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot. That's live on Speed at 10:30. Let's go back to the garage, and Marty Snyder has an update on David Rudiman.
Yeah, a lot of head scratching going on down here for David Rudiman and his crew. They have been loose this entire session. Finally made it tight on that last run, but Rudiman said it was a lot worse. He said it just doesn't feel fast anywhere. And here was his last quote to the team before they started making changes, and he hasn't said a word since. He said, guys, we've got to do something different in a different direction because we are in a lot of trouble.
And Jeff, I've got to say, I feel for Rodney Childers right now because the mindset would be, how in the world can we be loose in these conditions? If the sun pops out tomorrow, we'll be sideways at the start-finish line, even though I continue to say this race car sometimes doesn't follow the normal pattern.
No, you're right about that, Larry. And the problem that I see is that whatever they're fighting, and I think the fact that David was able to put it in the terms that he's put it in, they may need to call timeout and just start over and really start looking at some other areas that maybe something's not right and they're missing a very key component. It's very easy to do. If you've got one thing wrong in the front geometry or something wrong in the back end, all of a sudden it can really lead you down the wrong direction and just really upset your whole weekend at a racetrack or the practice session. So it may be a timeout coming in the future for this 00, and you'll see a lot of engineers sitting up in there probably scratching their heads before it's all said and done trying to figure out the problem. Hey, and the other thing is, hello teammates. I think that 47 car is looking pretty good right now. It might be worthwhile going over and asking Marcus And that bunch right there, what have you got underneath your car?
Might be worth a little team meeting after practice session.
On board with Kyle Busch.
Whoa!
Whoa! He wiggles pretty big.
That was a good save right there, Kyle.
I think he knows they've got work to do.
But little loose off.
A little?
Okay.
Well, he wanted to make sure he wanted to think about how he said it.
but evidently they have been working on the car not turning.
Right.
They've got the front end working. Okay, now get my back end stuck.
Yep.
So there's probably better news there than you think.
That's why I say I think that's the reason why he kind of paused for a moment. Okay, they definitely made it turn better and unhooked the back end a little bit. Now can we go back and get a happy medium? Because you know that guy can drive one loose.
Let's take a look at this wiggle on this 18 car just before he came in. This is going through turn 2. You can see he's running the bottom of the racetrack. You can see the car just walking up, and then all of a sudden the back end just steps out. And as we continue to document that part of the racetrack, maybe 175, maybe close to 180 miles an hour that was happening.
His teammate Denny Hamlin was quickest in first practice today, but right now soldiering on just 22nd. He's run 38 laps here in this final practice. Stay with us here in Michigan on Speed. NASCAR Sprint Cup practice on Speed has been brought to you by Gander Mountain. We live outdoors. Shop the stores, the catalog, or at gandermountain.com, where standard shipping is free all day, every day.
We're getting close to the point that, at least for this practice session, you've got what you've got. Watching Jeff Gordon in this 24 car, I get a feeling that they probably put tires on this car, Jeff, because he's jumped up to 14th quickest. He's run 33 laps, and the fastest lap of this practice session was on his 29th lap. So Steve Letarte and that group probably decided to take everything they've learned these 2 practice sessions, put it into the race car, fill it up with fuel, put tires on, and run till you see the red and black flag.
I agree with you right there, and all that right now so far is at least looking good that Jeff and Steve Letarte have made some good decisions in his final practice session, getting him competitive for tomorrow.
Refresh my memory. What's a fuel run here?
About 40 to 44 laps.
Yeah. But after last weekend, it may be 40 to 48 laps, Steve, if you cut the engine off.
Yeah, we always need to put an asterisk by our fuel window.
Yes. Marty has an update on Joey Logano side by side with Greg Biffle.
Yeah, speaking of laps, how about 45 for Joey Logano in this session? That's really the theme for these guys, as many laps as he can get out on the racetrack. It's fun to listen to these guys on the radio. Session 1 was really just about getting Joey comfortable on this racetrack, but they have made terrific strides, 8 fastest so far in this session, in getting the car better. He feels very good about it, and it's fun to hear him give feedback as well. Now he has to borrow his teammate Denny Hamlin's airplane to get from here to Kentucky. There's a seat on it, Larry Mack and Steve, if you guys want to go, and Jeff, you too. If you guys want to go, you know, we can hook you up with a seat from here to Kentucky this afternoon.
Michael Waltrip might need a ride.
Well, the thing is right now, Larry might want to do it, but Steve, I think you and I have already got committed.
We have.
Yeah, we got previous engagement.
I have a production meeting, so I'm tied up.
We have boarding passes.
I don't want to go to Kentucky. I'm not going to Kentucky. I would prefer not to go to Kentucky.
You can't make me go. Greg Biffle's headed to the garage. We're headed to a commercial break. Stay with us here on Speed from MIS.
I will watch it on television, though.
Me too. Matt Kenseth won here in June of 2002, then again in August of 2006. A lot of laps on that 17 car, working on his 47th lap of this practice.
It's kind of a typical Matt Kenseth practice. He's run a lot of laps. He's not fast, but the car seems to have some pretty good staying power. He just never did cut that real fast lap. His fast lap 39.53, where Mark Martin's fast lap was 38.86.
Moments ago, we saw Kyle Busch was loose in that 18 car there. He's battling with Casey Kane. Matt has an update.
Steve, less than 5 minutes left in his final practice session. They've got a good baseline on the 18 of Kyle Busch. Now they're just trying to fine-tune different ends of the racetrack. The last track bar change, they feel like they made turns 3 and 4 a lot better. He likes the way the car is repeatability down in that end of the racetrack is better than down in 1 and 2, where they feel like now they've made 1 and 2 a little bit worse. But they do have a good baseline. and he has run a lot of laps, so 48 so far in his final practice.
I believe he just got a clean cut down the front straightaway, getting ready to head to the garage.
And you know, Steve, you were talking about Jeff Gordon a while ago, that things, you know, were kind of not what they were in the beginning. But when you think about Kyle Busch in that 18 car, 14 races this year. Yeah, we know he's won 3 races, but he's actually only had 5 top 10 finishes. It's almost been like feast or famine with the 18 car.
Let's take a look at Dale Earnhardt Jr. moments ago.
Uh-oh. Little bobble, another bobble, big bobble.
Another bobble.
And a good catch.
I mean, we've seen this so much with this new car here. You're trying to run around these racetracks so fast. You're trying to find that optimum balance, and it's just, it's like walking on that razor blade, like we say a lot.
And Marty, what's going on with that 88 car?
Yeah, well, when we last reported about the 88 car and Dale Earnhardt Jr., he was very happy with it. Remember that? Well, since then, they've changed the right front shock and 2 left front shocks. And Junior just said to Lance McGrew when he pulled in, you know what? It's just not the same since we've made all those changes. So they're going to go back about 4 changes to where they were earlier in the session when Junior was happy with it and still trying to fix the middle. Junior has liked the car for the most part in this practice session. These last 2 runs, not extremely happy with it, though. And he was a little worried why they didn't have sticker tires around. He's been running scuffs this entire session. He said, why aren't we running the stickers, Lance? He said, because we're out of them. We used all of our sets of tires in these practice sessions today. So they're done with tires, and obviously as practice winds down, that'll be okay. They'll have plenty of tires for tomorrow's race.
Yeah, NASCAR, they don't necessarily limit the tires you have for the race like they do in the Nationwide and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, but they do limit the number of tires you have for your 3 practice sessions, which would also include qualifying.
Yeah, and again, tire management right there is very important during the practice sessions. We watch Rodney Wise from NASCAR up in the flag stand, or waving the red and black flag, signifying the end of this practice session. The final practice session before tomorrow's LifeLock 400.
Guys, I'm kind of curious. Excuse me, Denny Hamlin was quickest in first practice, just 22nd fastest in this practice. He ran a lot of laps, 47. What's the agenda there?
I think right there is that they worked on the car to get it more like they think they need to have it for tomorrow, not worried about that fast lap, more about comfort.
I tell you, a lot like this whole season, I just don't see no dominant car out there.
Hey, stay with us. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race coming up soon. Stay with us here on Speed.
The happy hour practice session has concluded here at Michigan. Now it's all over but the race and trucks this afternoon and Cup tomorrow. And we're in for quite a show if things wind out like they have so far today. Hello, everybody. I'm John Roberts. Thanks for joining us here on the Speed Stage. I want to welcome in Hermie Sadler. And Hermie, what did you see in happy hour, man?
Well, a couple things people are going to notice. Number one, Mark Martin and Dale Earnhardt Jr., fastest, first and second fastest. But seeing a little bit of a resurgence from Richard Childress Racing. These guys have obviously been struggling for the last, 4 or 5 weeks, but good practice session for the RCR guys, so look out for them tomorrow. But I still think before it's all said and done, you're going to have to outrun a Roush Fenway car to win.
And, of course, we had the pole sitter, Brian Vickers, was fast, as well as Dale Earnhardt Jr., the guy who won this race last year. And also, Clint Boyer was so happy with his car, he decided to run, 9 laps and then park it, as opposed to a guy like Brian Vickers, who ran 52 laps. So a lot of different strategies being played out.
Well, and we got to be careful here, like we do a lot of other places, not to confuse one fast lap with who's got a very good balanced race car, who's good on the long run. And JR Michigan always known to get some long green flag runs tomorrow. So these guys at the top of the speed chart, we know their cars are fast. The question is, will they last?
Yes, exactly. Now, we see a great group of fans coming in here so far today for the Camping World Truck Series race. It's right around the corner. And Hermie, week in and week out, some of the best racing you see in NASCAR's 3 top series comes from the Camping World Truck Series.
And this racetrack suits those trucks to a T. The big hole they cut in the air and the drafting and all that goes along with it, you do not want to miss the truck race coming up here at this racetrack. I mean, this is just fits that series perfectly.
New points leader and Matt Crafton on that series right now, but it's such a great mix, Hermie, of veterans and young drivers on that circuit.
Yeah, we keep waiting for somebody to kind of take control of that series and run away with the points, but Matt Crafton basically come out of nowhere to take the points lead, and he's been consistent. He won one, but he's been very, very consistent. Some other guys have been faster, but hadn't been getting the finishes week in and week out that Matt Crafton's been getting.
Now, history says no matter what you're racing here at the Michigan International Speedway, it is good to start up front. So let's take a look at who is going to start up front when the green flag waves this afternoon. Brian Eichler in row number 1 with Matt Crafton, Todd Bodine, and Kyle Busch. And you know what? Every time Kyle Busch enters a truck race, you better watch out.
Yeah, he'll be exciting. He will be fast. And these trucks can run all over this racetrack, JR. A lot of downforce.
The most recent winner on this series is Todd Bodine in the 30. He starts right in front of good friend, rival, and fellow competitor and champion Ron Hornaday in the number 33. The principal, Mike Skinner, inside of row number 5. And that is a good starting spot for him as well. And then here we see, Hermie, some of the veterans of this series.
Yeah, look at Brian Scott, the winner a couple weekends ago at Dover. He's inside of row 9. Timothy Peters over at Red Horse Racing there. Pretty good qualifying run for him right out of the box.
And no pressure on any of these Roush Fenway Fords or anything.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean,
they want to win here.
Win, you win, you don't, you don't. No question about it. Jack Roush Fenway wants to take everything they offer here this weekend at Michigan.
All right, and anything can happen. Watch out even for the guys in the back of the pack as we look at they'll be making their way through the field this afternoon. And Hermie, we got a little rain in the area right now, and we heard earlier in practice that this is one of the most temperature-sensitive racetracks that we go to.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be seeing some Sprint Cup crew chiefs keeping an eye on this Truck Series race, watching the tire wear, and see how the track changes during the course of the race, because this weather has been all over the map, and this racetrack does change a lot with the weather.
So tomorrow we will see the 80th Sprint Cup race ever held here at the Michigan International Speedway, but today we have the trucks on tap. They are coming your way in a matter of moments, and you know what? These guys simply don't play nice, especially when it's for Motor City bragging rights. Stick around, everybody. Trucks are next.